And so, but thank you guys for being patient. Last night, I was like, my throat was killing me, and I just got over having a fever. I don't have one today, but I had one yesterday. And I was like, how am I gonna have, when you like know you have to wake up in the morning and you don't feel good, and then you're like, I can't fall asleep. So I was like, I better just write that I might not be able to make it so that I can actually fall asleep. But then knowing myself, I woke up because I always wake up early anyway. So I'm here and I want to be here. So you're actually making me feel better because doing things you like mentally ups your game and then you feel less shitty. So anyway, yeah, I should take vitamin C. I had no vitamin C at all. How silly. But I did go to Real Food Daily last night and get a wellness shot. What do they put in those? There's like oregano and things, but it's all good. So actually, in the last week and a half, I personally have had like so many breakthroughs just from talking to my own coach and amazing people on the podcast. And I've been like regurgitating this stuff to my husband like 6 times and to a few close friends. And there's two things that really were like break me wide open thoughts that I want to share with you guys from two of the smartest people I've ever met. So I want to actually jump into that stuff with you. But before we do, I'm just curious how you guys have been doing since we did this last time. Like, did anybody find that they started to work more effectively? Has anybody found that you've been taking more action or more deliberate action? Does anyone want to weigh in on that? Like, since our last call talking about the strategy in terms of like trying to get that system down. Like, I know not everybody's going to do a co-write every week, 4 songs a month. I know you're not all going to do it exactly like that, but do you feel like you've been doing more? Because you've heard it said so many times, like this idea of massive action is what's needed. And I know it seems sometimes like it's just like an easy thing to say, but it really is at the end of the day. It's really what's necessary. I think I've said this to you guys before, but it's like success is not something we own. It's something we lease, and the rent is due every day. And I love that. But the idea that sometimes you want to take massive action, you don't know exactly what to do. And so last time I wanted to stay on, I think we were on for over 2 hours because I really wanted to make sure like you saw like an entire arc of what my process is. And I do the same thing, by the way, with the podcast. It's like I'm creating multiple episodes in order to pull a few good ones every month, which means I'm recording probably 4 a week and I'm putting out 2. And over the course of a month, there's several that we never air because they're just not as strong. So there's all of that. And then before I even do the show, it's like the researching of like tons of guests. And then it's looking at my audience's pain points and figuring out who would be the right match. And then always asking myself the question of who am I serving and how can I serve them better? And that's a question I want you to ask yourself. Like, who are you serving? Who's your client? And how can you constantly think about that? Like, that should be a fun game that you're playing every day with yourself. Like, whether you're having dinner with your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your mom, whether you're taking a walk, whether you're sitting on the subway, I'm constantly asking myself, who's my buyer? How am I serving my buyer? It's like a puzzle. I'm asking myself that every single day. Like right now, I'm trying to sell books, right? Because I sold about 2,000 books already. We have to sell 5,000 to hit the New York Times bestseller list, which by the way is like, I was like, that's it? I got that. So my question constantly now is like, where am I selling books? Who needs this book? How can I figure this out? So yeah, I can sell it to my podcast audience and they're the ones who pretty much bought it. And maybe some of you guys, because you're so sweet. But then the question is like, what else can I do? So last night I'm telling my husband, oh, you know what I could probably do? Well, this book is really good for anyone who's like a creative or an aspiring entrepreneur. So let me think about all the different groups around LA that might be like needing a speaker, and I can like barter with them. And I can say, if you buy 50 books, you don't have to pay me to speak. I'll come and speak. Just pre-order my book. It's like I'm constantly asking that question. So I used to spend 100% of my time on music, 100%. Now I'm spending a portion of my time on music. And music is still the thing that brings in the most revenue, by the way. Interesting. It's like, so, I can't quit it. You know, it's like one of those things you're just like, I wish I could quit you. I can't because honestly, it's great. It brings in the most revenue still. But at the same time, I'm constantly asking myself that question across the board. And when I did that full time, that was my puzzle. That was my game. It's like, who's my buyer? How can I get to them? What do they need? Where are they? So I would be asking myself that every day if I were you. I'd be like, who's looking for music? How can I get to them? How can I stand out to them? What do they need? What do they need? What's their pain point? How can I get to them? What would make that smarter? Which is why I told you guys on the last call that after a while, I stopped going direct to the creatives at ad agencies and I started going around them because I started thinking like, what's a better way? Like, what's a better way? And I thought, oh, well, clearing the song is really a pain in the butt. So maybe if I can get in good with the person who clears the song, who's less fancy dancy, like less people want to talk to that person. But if that person would recommend me as somebody who's easy to work with, then maybe the creatives would be then introduced to me by somebody else in the agency. So I started calling business affairs and I would be like talking to, Christina Benson, actually, who had a session booked with you guys. She was a business affairs person at an ad agency and she wasn't on the creative side. And I cold called her and I was like schmoozing with her and letting her, talk to me. And I was asking her, what are her biggest issues with clearing music? And she's like, oh, well, sometimes the songs are just so hard to clear because the creative wants, anything. They want you too. They want anything. They don't realize what the song actually costs. They forget that music costs money. So then we need an indie song and then the song actually has to fit. So it's really frustrating because to find a song that actually has all of these like sort of like sweeping, clear, universal themes that also works for the budget, that also works for the ad. And I said, oh, well, I have One Stop Music. And she's like, oh, cool. And you're really good at clearing stuff. You know what it means. I'm like, yeah, I totally understand it. You'll never have an issue, I swear, And I said, let me send you some stuff. And she's like, well, I'm not a creative, but send me stuff. And she's like, and I know they always need stuff about like, sort of like these like positivity, like these ideas. I'm like, yeah, I have a ton of stuff like that. And it's really easy to clear. So I sent her a bunch of stuff. And then I remember like a week later, I get an email from this guy, Matt, who's on the creative side. And he's like, Christina Benson introduced us. And I really like your music. And he's like the creative director. But the only reason he took me seriously is because the head of business affairs, as opposed to like me sending him a cold email, I was introduced to him by somebody who he walks past all the time, who's like parallel to him, but in a totally different side of the agency. So that was literally born out of like, what's the best way to get to these people? And I think that at the end of the day, like, yes, I feel like I do have talent. I do have, it's not like I'm pushing music that's garbage. I think that there's music that it's beautiful, right? There's some good stuff in it. But I think the reason, if anything, that you're walking away taking this class from me is because I'm such a hustler. Like, I'm such a hustler and I want to teach you how to do that for yourself. Like, at the end of the day, I think that's what's most unique, right? It's not my talent that's most unique. There's people who run circles around me on every level, vocally, musically. But if you can think about this question every single day, like, what action can I take? How can I stand out? I don't know. If most people, I venture to say that most are, because when I used to tell my friends what I was busy doing, they were shocked. They're like, well, don't you feel strange reaching out to those people? I'm like, of course I do. I'm totally uncomfortable. Of course I do. But I do it because I used to say to myself, you guys, I did an episode for the podcast on how to stop overthinking it. And one of the things that I talked about in the episode was my personal journey as an artist. And I said, there were days where I would pick up the phone to cold call a business affairs person at an ad agency and my hand would like shake because I was like, I knew that they weren't going to be like so happy to hear from me. It's not like they were like, we've been expecting your call. Tell us more about music. Like that's not on their agenda, So I used to go like this, like, oh my God, I'm like, so, and then what I would think to myself is all these like, defeating thoughts like, oh, you're going to have to like be uncomfortable. You're going to be in this awkward moment, probably for 45 seconds where they're trying to figure out why you're calling. And that's never fun. And then the thing that would always like get me through the call and push me is I would think like, am I going to let this fear stand in between me and my career? Like, am I going to allow this annoying feeling of being so uncomfortable to rob me of what's possible? I was like, no way. Like, I'm not allowing that. And that's part of one of the things I wanted to ask you is, I think that at the end of the day, there's two things. I used to say there was one thing that stood in between what we want and where we want to be, which was our own belief in how possible it is. And now it's sort of like our own belief in ourselves, right? Both of those things. But at the end of the day, like if you can't even picture a check coming in the mail for $27,000 because you wrote a song for a trailer. I'm just thinking of that because that's how much Tamara made for this song she had in a trailer for a Hulu TV show. But if you can't picture it happening, then why on earth would you be like willing to put yourself through anything? Because you're like, oh, what I really picture is nothing. So if I'm picturing nothing happening, I'm not going to do anything, because the amount of possibility, the amount of clarity that we have around what's possible will drive you, right? Like when you pack for a trip, you're not going to fill your suitcase and pack up all the stuff if you don't actually know that you have a ticket to go to Turks and Caicos. You're going to be like, why would I prepare? Like, I'm not going, right? But if you know that you're going on this trip and it's happening, you're going to take all the action possible. You're going to find out what the weather is. You're going to look into hotels, right? You're going to do all those things because you know you actually have a ticket. So I think a lot of it comes down to what is your belief in what's actually possible. And I'm so glad. Sorry about that. I might do that a few times. I know it's gross. I think it's so good for you that you met John Kleinbell. How many of you were on that call or watched the replay of that call? Great. So John was in my program, I think, 4 years ago. And he was, I mean, exactly like you guys, like talented, kind, and very frustrated. And he was like really ready to give up on music. And he used to sit in the front row. I used to do the class, by the way, not online. I used to do it in a theater called the Workman Circle. And I used to rent that theater and bring in all these people. And he used to sit in the front row. And I remember a few months in, he was like halfway through, like a year. And he walked up to me afterwards, and he walked up to the stage after everybody was leaving. And he looked like he was like on the verge of tears. And he's like, I'm like, not sure I can trust you. And I was like, why? He's like, because you keep saying all this and you're so positive and nothing's happening for me. And I'm working so hard. And I just like, my heart like broke, you know? And I was like, look, the first song that you played for me and the last song you played for me, there was a lot of growth in between. And you're getting it and you need to stay with this. And he's like, I just don't know that I can, you know, like, he's like, and he's told me so many times how that was such a defining moment for him. And I've had that moment with a lot of people, but a lot of people doesn't matter. Like you can, you know, you could be pouring something into someone, but if they're not open to receiving it, you know, they don't. But he really did get it. I said to him, you don't have to do this. I said, you can totally give this up. Like, this is frustrating. Nobody said doing this thing you really want to do with your life, this dream project. No one says that that's easy to get. Nobody says, oh, you want to be a songwriter? Oh, that's so easy. Nobody says you want to make 6 figures a year writing music for ads and TV shows. That's so easy. No, of course not. It's so much easier to go get a job where somebody who's building their dream pays you to be part of a organization. Like, that's easier to build someone else's dream. I said, you can totally do that, you know, and you can get rid of this, and you could do this just as a hobby. I said, but I can see in your eyes that there's a part of you, this is your identity, and you feel like you'd be giving up on yourself. And the time's going to pass anyway, right? Like, God willing, you're going to live a long time. So 6 more months is going to pass anyway. 2 years is going to pass anyway. Like, you may as well not give up on yourself. And, you know, at the time he had day jobs so he could pay the rent. And I was like, so I just think you should stay with it. And I will never forget where I was. I mean, every time this happens, I remember, you know, I remember when this happened with Anthony Neves also. He got an $85,000 Coors Light spot, and he just couldn't believe it. But John, I remember it was like another 6 months later, And he was like, I have to talk to you. Please call me back. He's like, I have tears streaming down my face. He's like, I just got $55,000 and my song's in a Starbucks ad. And we both cried. And then a bunch more things happened. And then he sort of, so many other cool things happened. So, if that was the only time that's happened, then that would be like, oh, well, it's happened to one person. So that's exciting. Good for them. But you guys met Jody also, and Jody and I went to college together, and I've known him since I'm 19. And we both were just like, these two songwriters lost without a map, and we both came out here with different sort of paths and found a way to make a living doing music full time. And so at the end of the day, it's so important that you A, have clarity of what's possible, and B, that you then do something about it, like you actually do something about it. So I'm curious, I want to read in the chat, how many of you since the last time we talked feel like you have either doubled down in your effort or maybe sort of, refined your process? What does that look like? Tell me in the chat, what does that look like? Refined your process, you said. Okay, I'm just going to look at the things that you said since I started. Saltwater gargle. I know, I should have done that. My mom told me to do that. You've been doing more co-writing. Electrical storms knocked out the power. Keeping it steady. After your last session is giving you a fresh sense of urgency. That's great. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I think that the thing that ultimately is what gets people there is that feeling of hunger. It's like, how hungry are you? How urgent is it? How important is it? Because there's so many people that I meet every single day who tell me what they want to do. And this person has talent and this person has a dream but how many people are actually taking action? Very, very, very few. Very, very, very few. Alex said, it's been so transformative. I've been listening to the sync playlist I made, really finding I love the songs, and I'm so inspired by the production. It feels so free. Specifically, the song Never Looked So Good by Design Valentine. Oh, cool. I scheduled co-writes for each week this month. That's awesome. How many of you scheduled co-writes? Because I know not everybody likes to co-write. Good. I see a lot of hands up. That's really good. I mean, I think just for accountability purposes alone, it's great. But also, isn't it awesome just to have someone validate your idea? Like, I don't know, for me, I never know if anything's good until I play it for someone and they're like, yeah, no, that's good, or that's too on the nose, or that could just be a little bit more interesting. Just change it slightly. Oh, we'll give it so much more dimension. There's been so many times where I just love having those little specific, changes that makes such a difference. Yes. Peter, I don't know that book, but I want to check that out. Okay, cool. Reading all of this. More discipline, definitely refined about double down. Great. Re-energized, more focused. Been doing about 3 co-writes a week. Oh my God, that's a lot. Reached out to possible placements, triple down, getting better at failing, silencing the no. Doing lots of research, getting clarity, organized 2 co-writes. Absolutely. Okay, more research, more risk, hitting more sends. Good. So how many of you have figured out a few people who you want to reach out to? And how many people have sent 5 emails since we last talked to music supervisors or to people at ad agencies? Okay, just a couple of you have. So I'm just curious because 3, you researched a lot but not sent. So let's get into this. Let's get into this a little bit. Let's talk about what comes up when you think about actually pitching. I mean, when you think about what I've done, right? When I say I was emailing at least 50 people a week and cold calling, when you hear that, how does that make you feel in your gut? And what are the thoughts that come up that might stand in the way? Because I feel like we should talk about that. We should talk about what that looks like. Terrified. So I get that. I mean, I just told you, I would be like this. You always feel like you're bothering them. Okay. So I want to talk about this I don't want to waste first impressions with songs. I feel confusion, which is the right person. Am I doing it right? I don't think I have a big enough catalog. 2 weeks ago, an agency took 15 of my songs. Anxious, not sure if my songs are. I feel like an idiot, not knowing which ads are in production. Feel like I need a few more tunes. I have a song that's good for a product, wondering if I should try to contact ad agency or the folks at the company. It takes me a long time to figure out who I'm sending to. I get discouraged. When they listen to the songs and they don't answer. I'm embarrassed. Yeah. So I can relate to all of those things. I've felt all of those things. And if I was hearing only that inside of my head, then there is no way I would actually do it either, because that's a very difficult thing to sort of like go through with something when you feel like you're wasting their time, you feel embarrassed, you're not sure if you have the right music, you don't know what they're working on. So just first of all, let me clarify a couple things. Number one, you don't need to know what they're working on to call them. That's number one. Because if you have, what I used to do is develop sort of a list of songs that I thought I had that were good for film and TV, and a list of songs that I had that I thought were generally good for ads. And they were a range of things, maybe like 5 songs on each playlist, like a TV film playlist and an ad playlist. And then I would reach out to ad agencies with this playlist, knowing that generally speaking, these are the kinds of songs that come up a lot, which is why we've been giving you these themes that people seem to ask for over and over and over again. So you don't need to know exactly what they're working on. In fact, I don't know that that's even a good strategy, like I've said before, because you don't know that for this particular Dr. Pepper ad, the director may have wanted to do a Frank Sinatra song. You just don't know what's going on. And so it's not really relevant. What's more relevant is when you need music. I don't know what you're working on right now, but in general, I have songs about togetherness and female empowerment and being an original and color and all of that. And I feel like just in general, I hear these songs come up all the time and I'm really easy to work with, blah, 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 blah. So that's what you're pitching. And that means you can pitch that all year round, like whenever you call. So that's one thing. But let's talk about all of these defeating thoughts and feeling like you're a bother. So a lot of people feel this way. And here's what's really difficult is every time, you're working on something, right? Whether you're working on your visual art or the app you're building or your music or whatever you're creating, at the end of the day, the only reason something is called a business is because it makes money. A business, right? You can call anything you want, but a business only is a business when it makes money. So in order for you to be in the music business and for you to have a business, that very last piece, which is you selling it, has to come into play, or else this isn't a business, it's something else. It's a hobby, it's a process, which is all good for you. It helps you grow as a person, but you're really interested in making it a business. So we need to talk about what that looks like and what gives people the chutzpah, what gives people the confidence, what gives people the audacity to sell things. And let's talk about it, because you're not alone. I feel like this is absolutely the biggest hang up especially for artists who are sensitive and feel really, passionate and they have big hearts. You just don't want to bother anybody. You don't want to offend anybody. You don't want to ask somebody to pay you for things. There's a lot of stuff that's wrapped up in that. And meanwhile, there's other people who are following through with that last piece, which is asking people to pay them for things. And they have a business and you're sitting on the sidelines going, yeah, well, I don't know what gives them the nerve to do that, but I don't feel comfortable. So let's talk about it for a second. The idea of feeling like a burden. Yeah. So this is how I want you to look at it. Imagine if you had like winning lottery numbers and you were calling somebody to tell them like, the winning lottery numbers. Or imagine if you found somebody's wallet. You found someone's wallet on the street and you found their phone number, their contact information, and you're going to call them and let them know that you have their wallet. So you wouldn't be nervous at all. You would be like, oh, I can't wait to make this phone call, or if the person lives near you, you would drive it over, you knock on their door. I'm so sorry to bother you. I found your wallet. Oh, thank you so much. Right. Like, you'd be so happy to give it to them. So why? What's the difference? What's the difference between finding somebody's wallet on the street and having music that you want to share with them? What's the biggest difference there? Like, I know that they're different things, but what makes it feel different? Tell me in the comments, what makes it feel different giving somebody your wallet and giving their wallet back and sending someone music? What feels different about that? I'll give you a second. You have something they need. They care about their wallet. They care about my music. You're not selling them their wallet. You're wanting to hear from you versus bothering them. Asking a favor versus doing a favor. Feels like you're asking rather than giving. There are 1,000 other counterfeit wallets being thrown at them, knowing that you're giving them something of value. What if you find a wallet and you don't know who it belongs to? You shouldn't give it to the wrong person. They want the wallet for sure. You guys, this is amazing. Oh my God. This is amazing. I hope that you're seeing this. What feels different is you created it versus, because these are all valid, but what it shows is your beliefs around this. So it's so beautiful, but basically what you're saying is, I'm a really good person, and that's a value. And one of the things I want to share with you that came up for me in my own coaching this week with this woman who's helped a lot of other entrepreneurs in my specific space. And she said this: when you have two values and they feel like they're in conflict, you're going to get stuck. And one of your values is, I want to be a really good person. It's a big value for me. I have an identity that's like, Cathy Heller is a good person. You know, Mark is, David is, Angela is, I'm a good person. I am. So when you think, if ever you think that that's going to be put in question and you're going to be a bother, or you're going to be doing something that's some way, you know, being unkind or burdensome, or you're selling something, or you're being sleazy, you're not going to do it. But we need to reframe this completely. We have to completely reframe this. So here's how I look at it. When Daniel Pink was on my show, Daniel Pink has one of the 10, he has one of the top 10 most watched TED Talks of all time. And it's actually, this piece is not in his TED Talk, but his TED Talk is really interesting. But this what he's saying is not in the TED Talk, but when he was on my podcast, we talked about this. Because he has a whole bunch of books written about sales, and when you actually push the thing that you want, you put it out in the world. So he said, you know, if you have something that you think is going to make a material difference in the life of somebody else, if you have something that you think is going to improve somebody else's life, then you have not just, you should do it, but he said you have a moral obligation. You have a moral obligation to do it. It's actually unethical, he said, for you to keep that to yourself. So I want you to remember that people don't actually buy things. We don't spend money on things. We buy feelings. We buy things that make us feel a certain way. And I used to think to myself, well, how do I know that I'm not going to be on the hook for any of those things? When you said, like, I don't want to be a burden, I don't want to push something, I don't want, you know, a wallet is something they need. Well, we talked about this last time I was here, but I call my sort of approach to life like the empathy empire, you know, building an empathy empire. And one of the biggest pieces that I teach you and that I feel so strongly about is this idea of knowing what is the problem you're solving for who you're pitching music to. And so if you really think about that and you're honest with yourself and you've been thinking about what it is that they need, I want you to realize that you are 100% like in the right to reach out to them. And you're in a very, 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 very small category, a very small amount of human beings who's doing business that way. I used to also remember that if I reached out to somebody and I wanted to share with them what it is that I had in mind, and I wanted to hear what it was that they needed, and I wanted to have more of that conversation, I knew that just me calling them, just me having the conversation, I trusted that that in and of itself would actually provide value in their day, because I wasn't planning to pitch them anything. I wasn't calling to read them a script. I wasn't calling to sell anyone on anything. It's not possible. People cannot be sold. I want you to think about it like this. Imagine if you went to a car dealership and somebody comes over and they just start telling you everything. They're like, you walk in and they start telling you all about this car they're pushing on you. You know, did you know that we have this new SUV? Did you know that we have blah, 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 blah? And they just start like pushing you on this one thing. And you're listening and you're like, does this person know that, you know, I don't want an SUV. Like, I just got divorced and I actually just want to have like my own little like moment right now, my own car. What I needed, it was something totally different. Why are they pitching this product to me? It's not going to work. What's going to work is the person who walks over and says, I'm so glad to see you. What is it that you need? You know, let me find out more about you and ask you a bunch of questions so that they can deliver the thing that you need. And they might even say, oh, you know, I don't think we have that here, but so-and-so down the street, there's another dealership. They actually have what it is that you need. So the idea being that if you reach out to somebody and your actual goal is to find out how you can provide value for them, right, in this one way, this is actually huge, because whatever it is that they're being paid to do, they need to get that done, right? So if somebody's sitting at an ad agency or if a music supervisor, I mean, you should see on our side when a supervisor is looking for something and they need a certain kind of song, it's a huge value when we actually can say, oh, we have that and we can clear it, no problem. They're like, thank God, I'm not going to get fired. Like, I'm on the hook for this. Like, I'm in trouble. If I don't find this song for this amount of money, I'm screwed. Right? I won't get rehired to do this job, or after a certain, you know, you don't realize, if you really step back and think about it, think about what that's like if you have a job and you actually have to find something and you're looking for it. And if you don't find it, you might get fired, or if that happens enough times, then you would get fired. But at the end of the day, your job is you have a very short amount of time to find a needle in the haystack. That's your job every day. Because music supervisors and anyone who's at an ad agency, whenever the music comes around, we are in post-production now. So everything's been shot and it's like the 11th hour and everyone's ready to go. And they're like, oh, we need a song. And what's amazing, we all know this, that when you sit and watch a TV show or you watch a trailer or you watch a movie, if you took the music out of it, it's so dead. Like you don't feel anything. You like need the music so badly. And it's amazing how that's not happening until post-production. Music is post. Like that's almost hard to believe, because there's so many times where there's no dialogue or there's a montage and the music is carrying the entire emotional weight of this moment. And it's not happening until way after the director, everyone's done. Actors have been paid, director's been paid, editor, and now it's like, we need a song, right? So when you think about that, when you think about the amount of pressure that's happening, they have this much time, then now they need the song yesterday, and everything's about being on time, and producers are like, that's what a producer does. They like basically stand there with a stopwatch and they're like making sure that everything gets done by the time that bell rings. That's their job. So they're asking everybody on the team, where is this? When is this due? Let's get this. And then the creative team, basically they have some ideas of what they want musically. They have no idea what it costs. They have no idea if they can get it. They have no idea. So we will get emails from music supervisors. Oh my gosh, I really need a song that sounds like this. I gotta have it by tomorrow. So imagine if you've been preemptively thinking about this process for a year, for 4 months, for 6 weeks. You've been thinking about this. You've been going into the studio and creating things that you think that they need, because that's the way that you've been doing business. And then you reach out and you're like, hey, do you ever need something like this? Do you ever need something like this? I have it. And they're like, wow, you have that? That's amazing that you've been proactively thinking about that. That is a gift. That is a gift. And also, in addition to the very thing that you've created that you know they're looking for that thing, right? In addition to that, if you are just going to show up, right, just as a human being with empathy, right, in the middle of their day. Imagine you're sitting at your desk and all day long, you're just a cog in a machine. You work as part of this show, you work as part of this agency. There's a lot going on. For the most part, you're not thinking you're fantastic all day long. You're just a person. You're sitting there. It's a job. At the end of the day, it's a job. And you don't get a tremendous amount of, that sort of connection time during your day. That's not part of why you're there. You're just doing a job. And then imagine there's this person that reaches out to you once in a while, and they think the world of you, and they're so curious about how they can help you, how they can figure out more of what you're needing, and they can just show up and be supportive. And then they also happen to just be really cool and nice, and they're like a friend, right? They become like sort of like a pen pal, or somebody who just pops in. Like Zion told me recently, he's like, I was so touched because somebody from the class sent me an email like a week ago, and he's like, he just wanted to let me know that he really appreciated me. And he's like, it just meant so much, he's like, it just meant so much, because he doesn't get emails like that all day long. And I can tell you that the same is true for me. Like it stands out, it stands out when someone's like, I just wanted to reach out and let you know that I love what you're doing, and it's super inspiring. And then you start to connect with somebody, and the connection starts to be more about you two as human beings, and a little less about the actual job, and less about the music. And it's more about just two people. And every time you pop in to this person's inbox, or you pop into this person's life, especially when it's tasteful, it's like, it's only once a month. It's like, boom, it shows up in your inbox. It's like, it takes like 40 seconds, or less to read this thing. But it's just always this consistent, kind, this person who's just showing up and nurturing and nurturing and nurturing this relationship, and not asking for anything. And that's where, I saw you guys typing that, well, if you're giving someone their wallet, you're giving something, you're not taking something. So I want you to completely change that in your head. I want you to think about, how could I create a business model where I'm 100% thinking about this as a giver? Because nobody is looking to give to you. That's true. That's not anybody's job. Nobody's job is to wake up every day and think how they can provide new opportunities for people they don't know every single day. Like, no one does that. But people do need things. People do need things. And what you have that you don't realize is, every time you think, well, I don't know how I can be of value or what I'm providing, remember that you don't just have access to you have access to every single person in this class, and all the people in this class that you admire, who are working really hard, who have huge hearts. Like, think about the people in this class. I can think of like 6 of them that come to mind, who have worked so hard, who are so kind, so earnest, like, who I would be so proud to send over to anybody as an ambassador, right? And so if you think about that, you have a huge thing that people want, right? You have this pipeline to really good people who are, between all of you, somebody has the song that they need, and somebody is kind enough that they won't screw it up. They'll be, as we say in Yiddish, like a mensch about it. They'll be a nice person. They'll be really appreciative. They'll be really grateful and generous. Like, that because there's so many people in this group that are kind-hearted and caring. Like, I can tell you, there've been so many times where, most of the time, I listen to artist music. I mean, this used to happen when I was looking to sign people. I would go to the Hotel Cafe website. I would look at the calendar, and I would click on every single person who was playing on their links, anybody who wasn't already signed. And most of the music was not syncable. It was just kind of like music. Some of it it was just not for sync. Some of it because the music stayed like this the whole time, production wise. Some of it because I couldn't figure out like what was the universal message or theme. It was like too specific or whatever it was. And so that was one thing. There was just a lot of, oh, there's no music out there for this. And I remember I would sit down with artists and say, have you ever thought of writing like this? Like, taking your same talent, but making sure that you're hitting these kind of storylines, because that's what we're telling. That's what we're doing for sync. We're telling stories, and we need, as the artists, when we're laying down a vocal, we're helping tell the story. So this whole scene might be about, breaking through, and that's what the director wants to sort of convey. And so if your song says breaking free, or if your song says whatever it is that would convey that, that's going to help a lot. So People usually didn't understand that. And then the second thing was there were a lot of artists that didn't understand how to be good business people. Like, oh, they want me to rewrite that. They want the whole song, but they want the words. I'm not doing that. You know, it's sort of like there's a lot of entitlement out there, and it's okay, but that's not, in my mind, like, again, if it's about business, that might work. I don't know if you have a different business model that might work.
Yeah.
Let's just mute everybody. Hang on a second. All right. How do we make sure everybody's muted? I just heard some background noise. So I really want you to get it. Like, you're really in a small group of people. Most people are not approaching it this way. They're not seeing it that they are going to be helpful. They're seeing it that they are going to be selling something. They're a burden, they're a problem, but it's not true. It's not true. Like, all day long. Okay. And by the way, music supervisors and ad agencies, they have to do this all day long. Do you know what they have to do? They have to pitch themselves. They have to pitch their services to other people. So supervisors are trying to constantly win projects. So they have to go in front of the director and the producer and say, you should hire me to be the supervisor, right? They know what that feels like. And at the end of the day, if they're good at it, it's because they also are there to seek to help and seek to support and seek to understand. But how do they actually sell themselves? Because they know at the end of the day, they're not a burden. They know this person should hire them over anyone else because they really have something of value. They're going to make the process easier. So please, you know, let me help you. And by hiring me, I'm going to follow through. You're going to see that. Ad agencies, by the way, if you ever watch Mad Men, you know this, all they do is pitch. That's what they're doing all day long, is pitching themselves to brands. They get up in front of Best Buy and General Mills, and they're like, here's our idea for you. Like, all day long, they're pitching. In fact, there's an agency in LA called Pitch. Like, that's all they do is pitch. So we have to understand that sales is not taking, sales is giving. And if you're not selling that way, then you're failing, right? There's no way you're gonna. And by the way, everybody is used to it. Like, you've gotten the Best Buy coupons in the mail, right? You've seen the Bed Bath & Beyond 20% off. You know, you keep those. You go into Target, it tells you like these things are on sale. It's not bothering you. Why is it not bothering you when people sell things to you most of the time? Because you've gotten to be familiar with these products and these brands, and you like them. It makes you feel good. When I get a Z Gallery catalog in the mail, I keep it, as I like looking at it. Like, I don't need anything right now, but I actually like looking at it. When Anthropologie sends me a catalog, I like looking through it. I like them. I'm happy they're selling me things. Why am I happy they're selling me things? Because I know that they understand me and they get me, and I am their customer. So it's like, I want to look through what they have. It's fun. People love to be given more of what they want, right? You're not hurting them, you're helping them. It's like they need this. You have no idea. I've had conversations. I remember flying to Chicago and sitting with the person who's the head of music for Omnicom. Omnicom owns like thousands of agencies, DDB, BBDO, TBWA, Chiat Day, and each one has like thousands. So I remember sitting with the guy who runs the music, and he was like, you don't know what a pleasure it is to have met you. You were referred to me by 3 different agencies who were like, this girl, she understands what we need. She's so easy to work with. She came through. She has all these songs. She's like one of the only artists who's been like creating music that we actually need. So I signed a deal with this guy to do all of these, so he introduced me to all of these agencies because he was like, no one's really doing this. And I'm like, well, that's really interesting to me. So think about it. If so many of you just sitting right here are feeling this way, and we know that you guys are really the good guys. You've been thinking about solving these problems. You're not just pushing a song just because you have an ego in this and you're like, no, you have to hear it. I know it's nothing that you need, but you have to hear it. If you're feeling this way and you see that most people around you are feeling this way, think of how much of an opportunity is there for you, because that means most artists are not doing this. Most artists are not picking up the phone. Most artists are feeling all of these things. Why would I do this? They don't need me. And you know what? They don't. And they would probably fail miserably at it, because if they picked up the phone and their intention was to try to get something for someone, and their intention was to try to sell something to someone, it's not going to work. It doesn't work to say like, okay, hi, Jamie, hi, you don't know me. Do you have 17 minutes? I'm just going to tell you everything about me. I'm going to try to convince you that you need me. It's not going to work. But if you call this woman Jamie and you're like, hey, Jamie, my name is Cathy Heller. I work in the music world. I'm reaching out to you because I really want to help create music for the things that you're working on. And I've been researching it, and I love those stuff that you guys are doing. I'm just curious, like, if you could wave a magic wand, like, how could I show up and offer value to you? What is it that you need musically? What's that process like for you? How has it been? What's it like lately? And the person's like, oh, well, what does that mean? What do you do? Well, I write music for film and TV, and I'm just so curious about how I can support your vision, because I love your work so much. And I know that, there's so many pieces of your job. And like, if there's one thing that I can do to help create any kind of ease around the music piece, I would just love to know what it is that I can do. And they might be like, oh, well, I don't even know what that means. And you could be like, well, what kinds of problems, what kind of issues are coming up? How could I maybe help that? I write music. I also have a pipeline to other people who have music. What do you need? What are you guys looking for? Oh, well, we don't need anything right now, but I guess, often we need songs, different kinds of songs. Well, what? And is there ever an issue that comes up that's really frustrating? Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's frustrating because I guess we can't find the right music, or I don't know, the right lyric. It's hard to put into words. Okay, well, I feel like I can totally understand how frustrating that is. And by the way, how long have you been there? I've been here for 3 years. Oh, that's so cool. It's such a competitive space. Do you like working there? Yeah, I like working there. It has its good days. Yeah, I totally understand that. Yeah, I just moved to a big city myself, and it's got its, I get really overwhelmed sometimes too. But at the end of the day, like even today, I was feeling really overwhelmed to call you, but I wanted to call you because I really want to work with you. And I figured, you're just a person like me, and I wanted to share with you that I've actually been really paying attention to the work that you guys have been doing. And I feel like one thing that would be really cool, tell me if I'm wrong, would it be really helpful if you had music that was like really affordable, easy to clear, and really kind of fit these stories that you're telling? Because it seems to me there's a lot of these like really positive ads, and they're so beautiful, by the way, and they make you feel like so good. And I've found all these really cool artists thanks to you guys. I've been introduced to so many cool people, and I started just feeling so inspired, and I've been like writing like all of this stuff. You've given me so much inspiration. Oh, really? That's cool. Yeah. And I just felt like maybe I could put up a bunch of stuff together. Can I, maybe I'll send you something. Yeah, you can send it to me. Cool. Yeah. So I will. And let me know, like, is there anything that you're feeling, lately that you're loving, like music wise? Is there anything that, yeah, well, we really love whatever band they share. Oh, cool. Thanks for sharing that. That's good to know. And then you kind of like have this like conversation, and, you might ask them a question like, is there any advice that you'd have for me? As somebody who looks up to you guys so much and feels like so intimidated, like, is there any, yeah, you know what? I would say when you're reaching out, just, we'll get back to you if we need anything. Okay, fine. Like just making that sort of space, creating that vulnerability, having those conversations, those touch points, you just be so surprised, like how that sort of shifts things. And quite often the conversation that I just played out is actually like the worst one. Like quite often what happens is that somewhere along the way, something human happens, and they're usually not that much of a gatekeeper. At some point, they usually say something like, it takes a lot of guts for you to call me, and I say something like, oh yeah, well, I was totally freaked out about it, but I figured, I'll give her a call. I know a lot of people call you or reach out to you and they want to sell you stuff. Like, I just feel like that's the last thing you need. I just really wanted to help. And I've been thinking about this so much, like, the best thing that I can do for you is not just try to sell you on something or have you give me an opportunity. I just really wanted to reach out because I just felt like I could provide value. And I know you think you just have like a job, but to me, it's a big deal to me. Like if I was able to be a part of this process and write a song that you guys love, like I would just love that. I would just love to be a part of that. So it was worth it to me to reach out to you. And what's happened is, so many times, I remember one time talking to this woman who we start talking, I usually offer something about me that's beyond the fact that I have music that I'm talking about. Like I'll say, you know, I'm a new mom, or at something. And I remember talking to this woman, she was at an ad agency in Texas, and I mentioned that I was a mom, and she said that she was trying to have a baby. And I said, oh, I've been down that road and I know what it's like. And she said, oh, like you went through fertility treatment, and we had a whole conversation about it. And it's just been, you have no idea, like the conversations that have happened when, I think I told you guys this, but when Sonnet first started working for me, she had just gotten engaged. And when she would send these cold emails, I said to her, why don't you mention it? Like you could say like, hey, Maria, hope you had a great weekend. I just got engaged. You have any advice for me? Like I'm excited, but freaking out. Anyway, hope you had a good Memorial Day weekend. That's what I did. Just curious, how I can help with any music needs. Is there something specific that you need? Here's a link to a playlist. No need to respond. I know you're super busy. Have an awesome day. Period. Like end of story. And people would write her back and be like, oh yeah, I once heard this is the good advice for marriage, or don't do it, or run, or whatever. People would just give her like funny responses, but they would have conversations that really far exceeded the realms of just music. But you're gonna have to get this. Like if you feel like a burden at the end of the day, if you feel like what you're pitching is you pitching something as opposed to giving something, then we have to reframe that, or else you're not going to follow through and even send an email, let alone make a cold call, right? You have to think about this. In fact, one of my best friends from high school, just to give you an example, I'm so proud of her. She's working so hard right now. She's a vegan, and she tried so many different things to like get business off the ground. And about 6 or 7 months ago, she was home and she found this way to take soy protein, and basically she has this recipe where she makes her own corned beef and pastrami, but it's vegan. And it sounds crazy, but it tastes like corned beef and pastrami. Well, she just told me yesterday that now she's at the Fox lot, right? So she started calling studios, but that's like the biggest thing. But the last 6 months since she's done it, she's now at all the main delis in LA. She's at Cantor's, Factor's, Arts, Izzy's, all the delis in LA. Not only that, now she's in some of the schools at LAUSD, and she's also now calling studios. So she just got into Fox. She's going to call Paramount. They just told her yesterday that Disney just bought Fox. So Disney is going to now have her in their commissaries. But this is really, really huge for her. Like we're talking about, it's gone from something she made in her kitchen to $1 million business, because they're ordering pounds and pounds and pounds of it. So she had to figure out that she needed like now a co-packer and all of these things out of like the question, who might want this vegan corned beef? Who might want this? And she absolutely, like when she's calling, she calls grocery stores, she calls general managers at these restaurants, chain restaurants. She was calling the food operations guy at all these. She called hospitals. Like she's basically asking herself the question, who needs to eat? Where are their mouths to feed? And who's the person in charge? And then she calls, and she doesn't look at it like she's a burden. She's like, I want to help you solve a problem. You know how there's a lot of vegans out there and you want to look cool. You want to look like you're helping those people when they show up and they want food. I have something really unique that I think might help. You're constantly thinking, what is your value add proposition? When you're calling someone, how are you not taking, but how are you helping them? And they look at it, as soon as you're clear about that and your vision and your excitement and your enthusiasm, you're so enthusiastic and you're so clear that you're giving them something that they need, they feel that. When you're calling and you're apologizing and there's hesitation and you're asking them for a favor, you're asking them to give you something, they feel that. Like it's so loud and clear. So you want to think, like, I know 100%, seriously, like it still stands the test of time. Like I know that if I walked into an ad agency right now, or if I was sitting next to somebody who's a supervisor right now, I would just feel like, oh, they're so lucky that they met me because I'm going to make their life so easy. Like I used to know that as soon as somebody would actually, like, we would connect, I would be like, oh, by the way, like, I'm the person you need. Like whenever you're in a pinch and you need songs, which is all the time, you're going to want to call me because I'm going to give you songs. I'm not going to give you any headaches. And they're all the songs that you need. I have them all. Like they're all here. Like if you need a song about this, if you need a song about that, I have them all one stop. And they're like, how do you do that? How do you have that? I'm like, because I didn't go that other traditional route of just writing songs. I have songs that are really written to help you tell these stories. Plus, I own my own publishing, so they're easy to clear. This is something I really, really want you to get. Does anyone have any thoughts on this? Is this sort of like changing things a little bit, shifting things a little bit? Are there light bulbs going off? Okay, good. So, yeah, I mean, this is the way that business gets done, right? And if you really feel like I trust, right? I used to trust this for myself, but I hope that you trust this. Do you feel that you have the work ethic that if you spoke to someone and they said, well, you asked, I'm going to give you the answer. This is the truth. This is what I really need. Okay. I really need right now songs about summer. And I really need songs about summer that have like a new take on summer. And I really need songs like this. And I got to clear them for $8,000. And that's all I have in the budget. If you really feel like you'd be like so happy to either A, write it yourself, or B, write it yourself and ask the class to also write in, and then you'd pick the best, and you believe that you'd wind up with at least 4 songs that were so perfect for the match and easy to clear for that budget. How could you not make the call? How can you not make the call? It's like, they're sitting there. Like, I want you to, when you come to Sync Keepers, or those of you who've been, I want you to think about people like Mike Turner, who's come and spoken to the class. He's so sweet. And we have a private secret Facebook group, all of us who work in the sync world. And he was on the group the other day and he's like, does anybody know how to get in touch with this particular artist? Because I can't find them. They're no longer with Cobalt. I can't clear the publishing. And if I can't find it by Sunday, I'm going to be fired. Like he was like, I'm in so much trouble. And then somebody was like, oh, I live in Seattle. I know his manager. I'm going to help you. And you don't know how many times we see on the backside, I wish you could see on the backside, people are freaking out like, oh my God, I need this song. I need to be able to clear it for this budget. Does anybody have anything that sounds like this for this budget? That's literally the job. Like I've sat with so many music supervisors and we've had lunch and I'm like, so do you love your job? And they're like, no. Like I thought I'd love my job. I thought I was going to be a DJ basically. I thought my job was like making cool playlists because I'm such a music fan. No, my job is like doing the bidding of these creatives who have these like crazy ideas of what songs should clear for. They don't ever have the budget for what they need. So they always need something to replace this fancy song. They never have the budget because these songs are so expensive and they don't realize. Creative people, when they get into the room and they're working on their show for the CW, they don't recognize that they can't get a Sarah McLachlan song for episode 6. Like they can't afford it. They don't know what music costs. They're not aware of what music costs. So then here comes indie artists, right? But then most indie artists, they're not playing smart. They're just writing songs about breakups. They're sitting there just writing songs about heartbreak all day long. So that's fine. And they've had it up to here with that kind of music. Like I'm telling you that all of the press that I've had is only because it really stands out when you have tons and tons and tons and tons of songs that are specifically crafted to tell these bigger stories. And then you're like, I have what you need. I'm going to call you. I have your wallet. I know you need it. I know it's going to be helpful and I'm going to be really nice about it. I'm not going to call and try to like push you. I'm going to call and ask you more of what you need so I can actually preemptively just keep creating more of what you need. And then I'll be that person who shows up in your inbox once a month and I'm like, what up? How's life? Here's what's going on in my life. So it's super personal. And then, oh yeah, no need to get back to me. Here's 3 new songs. And then like a specific question that like super easy for them to respond to. Like, what are your summer plans? What's the most exciting thing you did this weekend? I know we both live in LA. You're so good with food. Like what's a new restaurant I need to check out? And by the way, you don't need to respond, like just anything that gets the relationship just deeper, more back and forth. You have what they need. I'm telling you that you do. I'm telling you that you do. You have no idea how many people come into our class, have the conversation. When Brittany White was here early on, those of you who joined Six Figure Songwriting, she was one of the first supervisors. I don't know if you remember, but she was like, what the hell? Can I have every one of these? Like, can you send me every one of these songs? It's because she was pleasantly surprised, because most of the time artists are just, they're not doing it the way that we do it. So I want you to get this, and then I want you to be waking up every day going, not only do I have songs that are like this, but let's say, because one of you wrote, oh man, I don't know, I don't want to waste a first impression. I might not yet have the perfect song. But you have a pipeline to people in this class and in the access class. There's, between the two classes, there's definitely songs. There's definitely already songs, right? So you can feel good about that. You could be like, oh my God, I know that I can reach out and find out more. And I know that I would be able to pull together a playlist of what they need. Does this make sense? So I hope that that helps. So yeah, and then this idea of like, you're afraid that they're going to think you're annoying. I mean, if you think about it again, I mean, everyone keeps writing, not everyone, but a lot of you keep saying that. If you reach out to somebody, and your job, your purpose there, if you're not worried about yourself, a lot of the insecurity falls away. Like usually if I'm going out to speak, right? Like I'm going to speak on a stage in front of 1,000 people, and I get it in my own head, it's usually because I'm worried about what people are going to think of me. I'm worried about how I'm going to come across. I'm worried about what I'm going to say, all of that stuff. When I stop making it about me and I just think about what does this other person need and how can I help them? And I don't think, what are they going to think of me? How am I going to come across? Am I going to be annoying? If I get out of my head and I just show up to be of service, I don't get nervous anymore. I'm like, oh, there's nothing to be nervous about. I'm calling to be a help. I'm calling to provide value. I'm calling to be, you know, that helpful person in the business of music. And when you do that, then you're not worried because you make it about them. And then you know exactly what to say because you're there to ask whatever questions you need so that you can have more information so that you can help. And that's it. And after you do it a few times, you get more confident. And by the way, it is going to be scary the first few times you do it. No, it's not my birthday. My birthday is in 17 days, June 19th, but thank you. It feels like it's already my birthday because it's June already. So I want you to think about that. And the other thing that comes up is what it means to be paid for things. You know, people have a lot of really interesting feelings around money and around being paid for things. In fact, a lot of artists feel like if they're somehow if money becomes a part of the picture, that they're doing it for the wrong reasons, or that you know, they feel like they're duping someone. You know, is it really worth that? I can't believe they're paying me that. I don't understand. Like this a lot of shame comes up around money stuff, and I think that we need to remember that they already have a budget, so you're not twisting their arm. They come up with a budget before they even know that you exist, right? They're like, this is the song we need, this is the budget, and they've decided what the value is for that song. So you're just exchanging it. They're like, this is the value that we have, this is what you need. It's just a simple exchange. There's nothing more going on there. And I think that we need to understand that money is just like oxygen. It's just another resource. It is just another resource. It's something that we made up. We could have called, you know, this money, and we could have made different color sunglasses, and the pink ones were worth $50 and the black ones were worth $100. We took paper and we gave it value. We said, this is worth $5, this is worth $10. We made up value so that we could exchange value for value, because we used to be in a place where a long time ago, ships would come to port, they didn't have currency, so they would trade like things for value. You have 3 cans of beans, I'll give you this other object and we'll exchange it. That became a very clunky way to exchange things. So we said, well, let's come up with value, and we'll put value on paper. It's just a story, and we'll exchange value for value, but it'll just be a much easier system because we won't have to bring items around like, well, you have this, is this, how about my old clock? How about I mean, that would just be much harder, right? So we just exchanged paper value, things that we just gave value, we assigned value to money and we exchange it. So at the end of the day, we have to just know that what we have is valuable, and we have to be willing to receive value for things that are valuable. And that's it. And it's not more complicated than that. It's really not. Like, we make it so complicated because we have all these beliefs around money. Money is the root of all evil. Money is greediness. If you're an artist, you should be starving. Real artists don't take money. Real artists are not in it for the money. That's not true at all. I mean, if you want to be a real artist where all you're doing is art, you need to be being paid to do art so that you can do more of it. You can get better at it. You can do it full time. That becomes your investor. Just like Michelangelo was paid to create the David and the Sistine Chapel, and Randy Newman gets paid lots and lots of money for his songs. Like, there's this old little story about Picasso where somebody like came into a cafe and said like, "Oh my God, you're Picasso. Can you draw something on this napkin?" And he did. And the person was like, "Thank you so much." It took him like 10 seconds, and they're about to walk away. He's like, "That'll be $64,000. Like, $64,000, like you doodled on a napkin." He's like, "Yeah, it's $64,000. She's like, "It took you 15 seconds. He's like, "No, it took me like 68 years. Like, that's how old I am. Like, that's what that is. That's what that costs, $64,000. Like, and it's just like, there is a value to things. There's a value to things. And there's a place where you realize you are valuable, and you start to be comfortable being paid what you're worth. And that's a really important place to be, because the more you allow yourself to receive value for what it is that you give, the more is going to come in, and the more comfortable you're going to be being like, I'm not doing anything that's sleazy. I'm literally just exchanging value for value, which is, there is a value for this. Like, it's like, just like right now, you could figure out what the Apple stock is worth, and it's objective. It's like, this is a fact. This is what everybody's decided it's worth. I'm not making it up. That's what happens with anything, right? There's a value for this mug. There's a value for this iPhone. There's a value for this Kiehl's hand salve. Like, the market has decided it based on a million different factors. We know what the value is. There's already a value for music. You're not doing anything that's sneaky. It's like, they already know what they're paying you. They've already decided what it's worth. And it's actually a lot more valuable than what you would have decided. Like, I'm sure if it came down to it and they were about to offer you, my first big ad was, my first ad was for Kodak. It was $25,000. And it was like a little interstitial. And then my next big one was for Hasbro, and they gave me $58,000. Well, if you would have asked me, if I wasn't in the conversation about the budget, I wouldn't have said 25 grand. I wouldn't have said 58 grand. Like, these are my first two big placements. I would have probably said like $700. I don't know. I would have said the cost of what it cost me to produce the song. I don't know. I definitely wouldn't have come out of my mouth $58,000. There's no way. There's no way. But they said to me, does this work? It's going to be this much for both sides, all in. And I'm like, yeah, that'll work. The hell? Like, I couldn't believe it. It was like, well, this is what they've decided. There's a market. They've done their homework. They know what it costs. They know how many times it's going to run. They do the math, and this is what they offer you. And as you then get more confident and more comfortable, you sometimes ask for more. You can't believe it, but you sometimes ask for more, or you ask for SAG royalty, and sometimes they don't have SAG, they're not doing it that way. So you say, oh, well, then can you give me more on the upfront? And they're like, okay. It's all about, again, knowing your worth and being okay letting it in. Like, at the end of the day, if we talk about this entire process and we talk about how you need to make sure you're co-writing and writing 4 songs a month and making sure that you are, but if at the end of the day, after you do all of those things, you have a really hard time receiving your worth, or you really deep down don't feel like you're worth it, or you really deep down are like, I can't take $58,000 from someone. I feel like a fraud. You're not going to follow through, because you have to be beginning with the end in mind. And you have to see yourself being able to pitch something, not feeling like a burden, feeling excited and ready to let it in, like ready to let in this exchange, and knowing that this is just, you didn't even invent it. Like, you showed up late to the party. This is already happening. You're just showing up to be a part of it. Like, someone else has already created this. There's already an entire infrastructure that's decided what's needed, what it's going to be worth. You just get to participate or not. But if you shame yourself into feeling like you're not worth it, you're taking from someone, you don't have what they need, you're bothering someone, it's not really worth it. Is the song really good? Well, then you don't believe in yourself. You think that you're going to be a problem. It's not going to wind up following through. It's not going to wind up happening. You have to believe that you're in this for the right reasons. You care about solving these problems. You love doing this. You're so excited about creating really good, musically satisfying, creatively satisfying songs that also work for these projects, and you have no problem receiving what they're worth because you're so excited and happy that this exists, right? I mean, how lucky are we that this exists? There could have been, or there could be, I don't think it'll happen, but there could be a time in the future where so many people start getting this, and then they change the value, and they say, oh, we're only going to give you $3,000. And by the way, why are they giving you $58,000? Why are they giving you $70,000? Because supply and demand, okay? If there were already oodles and a plethora of songs that they need, that are golden, that sound good, that have great production, that have great lyrics, that already are easy to clear, they wouldn't pay you that, right? Because there'd be so much of it. It's like they don't need it. They can get it for less, right? But why is it valued at that? Because what's out there right now is either they go to a label and they pay $1 million for a track, or they try to find a substitute that sounds really good, that's radio ready, that's going to cost them a fraction of the price. And if there were tons and tons of indie artists who really got this, who really understood how to dial it in, and creatively it just worked, and the song, just like a piece of gum, you like chew it and like that first like 5 seconds it bursts in your mouth with flavor. If there were that many songs that just bursted in your ears, like swelling the way that really good songs do, and they not only did they swell dynamically with the right production, but the lyric and the hook was just like right on it, and it told the story. If they had dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of those songs for different kinds of themes in different playlists, you're right. They wouldn't pay you what they're paying you. They'd be like, oh, we have that on, like, it's like, on an IV drip. We have that all day long. They don't. And because they don't, when a song comes along, they go, oh, this is perfect. You have a song called Let Your Colors Shine. It's exactly what we needed. The production's great. Of course, the production's great. Billy Loeffler did the production. And this works. Let's use this. I mean, why would they use that same song 6 times? Who cares? Use a different song. They don't have it. It's not there. It's not like it's the best song ever. There's more talented people out there, but nobody's doing it. Nobody's doing it. Like, I happened to just decide to do it. And so I worked really hard at doing it. Then I knew the value of it. And so I worked really hard to make sure to show up and be like, I found your wallet. I found your wallet. I found your wallet. And they were like, awesome, cool. She found my wallet. This girl's awesome. This is my go-to person. And she's so easy to work with. And people would thank me. I'm like, you're thanking me for sending me a check. People were thanking, oh God, you're so easy to work with. Thank you so much. You made this so easy. I'm like, I made this easy? I signed a piece of paper because you handed me a check. Yeah, but you're just, oh, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. We love you so much. I'm like, you love me? Why do you love me? You're handing me money. It's because I'm helping you do your job. Like, you need the job done. How often do you hire someone? I feel this way with almost every person in my life. They just don't do the job. Like, how many people in your life who you're paying are just subpar? I mean, I feel like my accountant, the guy who does our gardening, my daughter's school principal, like, I just feel like all these people like phone it in, and it sucks. It really sucks. I'm like, I'm happy to pay for someone to do the job well. Like, my new nanny who's been here like 10 months, I always like overpay her. And she's like, you overpaid me. I'm like, but you do the job. You actually do your job so well that I want to overpay you. She's like, okay, why? Because I'm happy to pay. I'm happy to pay for so many things I need if someone would just do it well. And when I say do it well, I don't just mean do it in a way where you do the job. I mean, how many times think of any person who shows up in your life, like you need to get your car repaired. And you're like, oh God, I just know this is going to be a racket. I'm going to go in there. They're going to lie. Then when they actually do the job, something will be wrong. I'll find out later that I could have paid less. It's just like a joke. And there's so many things in your life that are like this. And it gets to a point where you're like, I just want to work with someone who's good at their job. I just need people who are, I can't deal with it. This is all over the music industry. It's all over every industry. It gets to a point where you're like, I'm going to really keep this close to the vest and try to find like 3 or 4 people who know what it means to be professional, who show up and give me what I actually need. And then I'm so happy to pay them. It's a dream. It's like, I already budgeted this money for you. I'm waiting to give it to you. Would you just show up and do your job? Please just show up and do your job. Like, I can't tell you what it feels like when somebody actually shows up and follows through for me. And I'm like, I would happily pay you 3 times as much just to do the same stupid thing that I wanted someone to do for less, because no one is doing it. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, I'm telling you, it's really, really, really true. And it's all over the place. And on top of getting the job done, imagine if the person does it and they're nice. They're not just nice, but they're caring and they're giving and they're appreciative. Every time, I mean, I stopped doing it after a while, but in the beginning, for the first few years, every time a license would finish, like we've done with the paperwork and everything, I would have sent to the office something really sweet, like, you know, a box of cookies or a cake or flowers or something. And recently I've done that with the folks at Apple, because Apple has featured my podcast 6 times, which was like so generous. And they chose us as like their #1 favorite podcast for 2019, which was so nice. And so I've sent things to Cupertino, which is where they are. And they were just so touched by it. And they're like, you didn't have to do that. I'm like, what does it take? What does it cost for me to do that? When nothing. And I ran into the guy there was a thing called Podcast Movement. I saw him there and he's like, you're the only person who's ever done that. You didn't have to. I actually felt bad that you thought you needed to. I'm like, A, I didn't think I needed to do it. And B, it meant so much to me that you are behind my show, you know? And it's like, they look at it like, well, I'm just doing my job. Like I needed something to put in that spot and we liked yours. So we had to do it anyway. It's like, we are so like, we feel so undeserving of things that we don't realize that they're doing it anyway. Like they're going to pay that money to somebody. So think about that. Like they have a budget. They're going to have to find indie artists. They're going to spend the money anyway. And they're probably going to have a hard time finding what they need. And most likely, they're not going to find like the sweetest, most conscientious humans. And they're probably going to be working with in-betweeners, right? Like agents or people like that who knows how excited they're going to be that the song gets placed. They might take it for granted after a while. So there's something, yes, it's good to have both going on. It's good to have an agent, but it's also good to be doing your own pitching, because no one will ever be the best ambassador for you as you can be. Like you're going to always be the best ambassador because you can be the most grateful, the most conscientious, the most compassionate, the most appreciative. And we have to get that we're in service. Like it's a service job. That's what every business is at the end of the day. You're there to serve other people. You're there to follow through for them. And imagine if you can go the extra mile. Imagine if you can not only give them the thing that they need, but let's say that you find out somebody needs something, and not only do you send them your song, but you send them 3 other songs from the class, from your friends, who you don't even care who winds up getting it. You just want to make sure that this relationship is like solid. They wind up thinking, wow, thank you so much. Like you're just really going above and beyond to give me what I need. And what you really want is not as much of that particular placement. You want that relationship, and you want to collect as many of those relationships and go deep with them. And then remember, you don't need thousands of relationships. People are always thinking, I need more followers, more subscribers, more. You can really do so much more with less if you go deep with the few that you have. So let's say you just have a few and you collect 8 relationships, 12 relationships, and that's it. And there's 12 human beings who you've connected to and they get you and you love them, but you go deep with those 12 people and you are there, really conscientious about it, and you're there to really understand more of what they need and show up for them and be appreciative and cultivate a relationship that's just beyond just the music. Well, I mean, you can do so much more with 12 relationships than you can with 1,000 where there's no engagement. So it's not about trying to meet everybody. It's just a small group. In fact, I would say, I think I've told you this, but for the most part, I think there's like 27 or 28 people who really like have like kept me in business, you know, and that's it. Like in the whole world, I mean, I didn't get through to every ad agency. I didn't get through to every person, and it doesn't matter. It's about, you know, can you really go deep with a small handful of people? So that's one really big thing. And how many of you hearing this are feeling a little bit more confident and a little more excited about getting in there and doing it? Good. I'm really glad. And I want you to think about your enthusiasm, because I want you to remember that people are not buying things because you're able to show them with data and research that objectively the thing that you're suggesting is the absolute best thing. That's not how anybody connects. And this is how it works. Imagine if you went to an amazing Italian restaurant, and you tell somebody, you come back from your trip and you're like, oh my God, we were just in San Diego and we went to a great Italian restaurant. Then your friend's like, cool, okay. But imagine if you came back from San Diego and you're talking to your friend and you're like, are you ever in San Diego? And she's like, not really, you know, once in a while. Okay, when you go to San Diego next, there's a place, it's like a little hole in the wall, and it's Italian food. And the woman who works there, she's owned it for like 48 years. She's so sweet. The meatballs, like I put my fork in it, they just like fell apart. They were just so amazing. And we had this wine, and she said that like she goes to Italy like 3 times a year and she brings it back, and it was so good. And I just couldn't believe this experience. It was just amazing. Your friend's like, what's the name of the place? Right? Like, I'm going. Well, that's how we have to sell things. It's like, it's just feelings. It's just how just enthusiastic and excited you are about this thing. Like, I'm so excited about it. I was like, you know, I've been studying all this stuff that you were doing, and it made me so inspired. And this one song, I loved it so much. And I went in the studio and it just opened a whole world for me. And I was just like, I just was free for the first time. And I was playing with all these different instruments, and I just had so much fun. And basically, like, I recorded myself having fun. And I think it's going to work, because I think that that's a lot of what your message is. I'd love for you to hear it, because we just had such a good time. And there's this one part, we got super silly, and we were like playing kazoos just because it was just fun. And so no matter what, I just want to thank you, because you inspired me. Like, your agency does such quirky, cool stuff. It just inspired me to play. And when was the last time that you really let yourself play, you know? So I just want to say thank you for that. And, you know, take a listen and then tell me, like, what is it that you need? That's what I'm here to do. I just really want to show up. I really want to serve. I really want to support you. And it's just, you know, it's all enthusiasm, which is why if you're worrying about somebody thinking you look stupid, if you're worrying about taking from somebody, if you're worried, it's all ego. When you're doing that, you don't realize it, but you're just in your own head. You're thinking about yourself. You're actually, you think you're thinking about the other person, but really you're thinking about yourself, and you're thinking about yourself from such a low place. You're thinking, oh my God, I'm not going to be doing this right. I'm going to be an idiot. I'm bothering somebody. Like, all of this stuff, it's really just about you giving yourself such shit, as opposed to like, let's move all that out of the way. Fuck that. What a waste of time. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to celebrate this moment in my life and just be so enthusiastic about connecting with this person. I'm going to be like, oh my God, I just had the best few days. Like, I've been listening and watching all the work that you guys have been doing. And I love this show so much. And oh my God, don't get me started. Like, I don't know where the hours went. I just binge watched 3 seasons of your show. So thanks a lot. You know, my husband thinks I'm like lost in the closet. You haven't come out of my room watching your show. I love it so much. But I got so inspired by it. And oh my God, this one character, I went in the studio and I wrote this song, and it reminded me of this feeling that like, it was so therapeutic. You know, I have this feeling about my dad, which I never even really registered. And then I watched this character and I was like, that opened me up. And so anyway, I just feel so excited. I'm so grateful. I love what you're working on. I know your time is limited. I know you're like, you need what you need. And I'm like one of those people, actually want to give you what you need. I like doing it this way. I love being creative and working on, you know, sort of telling a story that's bigger than my own. And what are you needing? And by the way, like, I love all of this so much. Like, this is just what I love to do. So I'm easy to clear stuff. Everything I do is you know, just the enthusiasm and the excitement. It's just, people are so desperate for that. If you, just that alone, if you knew that you could walk into somebody's day and just be filled with enthusiasm and your breath of fresh air, people are like, you know, like someone who gets it. And it reminds them of why they do their job. They're like, oh, I actually forgot about why I do this. I didn't remember for a little while. I was just like sitting at my desk doing a job, and then you came along and you had all this life inside of you. Remember when I said, I said this to you last time, but it really goes along with this. There are people right now getting paid to do what it is that you want to do simply because they believe in themselves. There are people right now who are less talented than you, less kind than you, have less of a big heart than you do, who are being paid to do what you want to do because they believed in themselves. So they showed up. And it's like, why are they the ones in there? Why are they in the conversation? Why are they in the room? So I want to go back to what I started with, which is this should be the puzzle you're asking every single day. Where's my buyer? How can I get to them? How can I stand out to them? How can I make them, you know, feel supported? What are the things that I can do that actually break through? I feel like the difference is you already know your friend about the restaurant cold calling. You feel like you're in the dark, but you're not in the dark. I know it feels like you're in the dark, but you're not, because here's what you know that people want to connect. You know that people want to feel heard, right? We all have that in common. We all want to feel seen, and nobody wants anyone to try to ask for something. Everybody wants something to be given to them, right? We're not looking for opportunities. We're looking to solve problems. And we know that every human being, for the most part, for the most part is not even a big enough statement. It's very rare that people are jerks. Like, it really is. It stands out. You talk about it, you're like, so-and-so was such a jerk. For the most part, people are really, really kind. So you know that there's a lot of really kind people who are sitting at jobs, sitting at desks right now, and they don't feel seen. That's the number one thing. People feel like, you know, sort of invisible. So can you help with that? Yeah, you can. And also, you have some sense, right? We've been talking so much about this. You have some really, you do have a sense of what they need in general. You know that they need songs that they need versus songs that people just send to them. And you know that they need songs that are easy to clear. So if you can lean into that and lean into helping them feel seen and asking them questions. And also, I've told you this before, when you send emails, this email should be short and sweet. It should not be you pitching yourself to them. And there should be a question in there that is so easy and so tempting to respond to that they're dying to respond. Like there's something fun, you know, something fun. What was the best, there's so many ways to do this, but it depends, like, you know, like I said, like using the current moment, right? Like, it's about to be summer. What's your favorite? It's about to be summer. I love watching old summer movies. Like, what's your favorite summer movie? You know, the one with John Cusack. Like asking people just fun, simple questions, or what are you doing this summer that you love? Every summer I say I'm going to do things and like never do it. But one summer 3 years ago, I went and did this and it was so awesome. Asking just simple to answer questions, or maybe you actually have something specific you want to know. You can ask them that. But I think it's more fun to ask a question that's a little unrelated to the topic, and then making sure that you end the email with, like, I know you're busy. You do not have to get back to me, and mean it, you know, really, really mean it. And then you can follow up with them again in a month. Myra, you just said, what do you put in your subject lines when you reached out to them to get an open email? So we've talked about that before. Let's talk about it again. You definitely don't want to let them know what's in the email by saying song submission, pitch, music, indie music, none of that. That is not going to work. You want to send a subject line that's so like curious. It's so unsuspecting that the person's like, what is in that email? Like, what is actually in that email? And so I've told you before that I would find 2 words that related to something within the email I was sending, but that were so random. Like at one point, I remember I sent an email, it was like right after Halloween, and in the email at the bottom was a picture of my daughter, and there was like pumpkins behind her. And I don't know, there was, what else was, all I know is I wrote pumpkins and something. It was like pumpkins and a plus sign, and it was like corduroy or something like that. It was like pumpkins and corduroy, which is so weird, right? Like if you saw an email come through with a subject line that said pumpkins plus sign corduroy, you'd be like, I'm going to click on that. I don't know what the hell that is. It's kind of fun. It's like a mystery, right? And so inside the email, I had like alluded to Halloween. There was a picture of my daughter in front of a pumpkin patch. And I think I had said that I was like wearing like corduroy, and I was like, I couldn't believe how it was still so hot, and it was Halloween, and like corduroy was like a bad decision, And so I would always do that. Like I would like find 2 random things inside of my email, and at the end, I would create a subject line. I would never create a subject line first. I would write an email, try to be like personable and cute and you want to be specific, right? We are in the attention business. Like you're trying to get people's attention. So you want to talk casually and you want to talk in specifics. Like you can say, I'm a songwriter and I have music, and it's like white noise. It's just like boring. Like I don't even hear that anymore. I don't even know what those words mean. No pictures come to mind. No feelings come to mind. But if I say to someone, hey, my name is Cathy, I have 3 kids. When I'm not watching Frozen for the 1200th time and making grilled cheese, I write music, and I like to write songs that are about rainbow sprinkles and unicorns or whatever. It's like, oh, all of a sudden I have feelings, I have images that come into my mind and make me start to feel something. So we need to be specific. And then if that was one sentence and it said, I love what you're working on. I hope you're excited about the summer. I'm going to, I'm going to take on meditation. I've always been wanting to do it. That's what I'm going to try to do this summer. What's one thing you're looking forward to from the summer? Here's a link to 3 songs I thought would be, not perfect, but here's a link to 3 songs that I thought would fit what it is that you're doing. I've been loving what you're working on. You don't have to write me back. I know that you're probably super busy. Thank you so much. Signed like you're, one exhausted, parent, or something like that. And then like maybe like a picture of my like dog or my kids, or like somebody meditating and it says something funny because I just said something about meditation. All of a sudden that email is like, it's alive, it's vibrant, it's a person, there's a personality to it. There's something going on that's not this like formulaic business email. Does that make sense? You want to learn how to send emails that are casual. Casual is the new professional, but not just casual. You want them to be casual and fun, and you want to feel something. So remember, it's all about specificity. It doesn't matter. Somebody said like, well, they think it's spam. They might. It doesn't matter. Like some people might, but I guarantee you, if you write an email with the subject line, song submission or music for you or whatever, they're like deleted, or they just won't read it because you're telling them this is what's in this email. And they're like, oh, thank you for alerting me to what's in there. I don't have time for that right now. But if you send them a subject line, they don't know what the hell it says. And one of the best ones is, I remember when I was first starting out and I was doing this, I remember meeting this girl at the park. I was there at like a picnic with some of my friends, and we were talking about cold emails and subject lines. And I remember her saying that like something that she used to always put in her subject line was sexy Italian. And I thought that was like so good. And I said, why do you write that? And she's from Italy. And she's like, oh, because, I'm from Italy and I just think it's a fun subject line. And she goes, it always gets opened. It always gets open. And I was like, so smart. So I didn't have the balls to write like sexy Jew, because I think that that's like not as sexy maybe. Or like, I don't know. I don't have the chutzpah to like write that. But I think it makes sense. It makes sense. But if you go back, if you like peel this back and you think to yourself, we are in the attention grabbing business. That's your job. And then once you actually get people's attention, if you know that you're going to deliver, if you know that you really do care about how to solve their problems, how to help them, how to give them, you know, this person who, like I said, who actually gives a shit, who's going to show up and do the job, you're gold. And you know you can do it over and over and over and over and over again because you trust, you're going to bet on yourself, and you're going to bet on yourself that you're going to show up and be the most helpful you can be, the most professional, and you're good to go. I just want to read some of these notes. See, Michael, he just did it. Does LA have good mini golf? I'm stoked for exploring it when I'm down for Sing Keepers. And look at him with the thumbs up. So like, that's super specific, and I won't forget that you just said that. And yes, and that makes me think of like the only place I've ever gone to play mini golf, which is at, it's on Ventura, no, it's off of Sepulveda and Ventura, Castle Park. But like, it's specific, you know, it's specific. Yeah, Chris said frozen grilled cheese sprinkles. I'd open that email. That's a good subject line. Thank you for that. That's a good subject line. And I do this all the time, by the way. If you send an email and say no need to reply, how often would you follow up? Like once a month. Once a month. You guys are like, I'd open Sexy Jew email every time. Okay. That's my new email to everybody. That's it. That is it. Especially when I'm sick like this. It's like, I am as sexy as you can find. Yeah, and the thing is, at the end of the day, the people who are going to wind up walking away with the career that you want had the guts to do these things that maybe feel a little uncomfortable, but they wind up making a lot of friends because they stand out, because most people don't do this. And then, you know, if you know that you can deliver on the music, why not? It's like, and you have such a great resource because you're in this program. If you weren't in this program, then the pressure's on, right? You got to deliver, and you probably still can do it, but it's all on you. But if you know that you're a little bit, let's say you have some self-doubt, but there's 5 or 6 people in this group that you're like, I know this person has amazing music. And you know, at the end, when push comes to shove, you could always send those songs over and they would make you look so good. It's like, you have a huge, that's definitely being in a position of power, because it's all about value add proposition, and it's all about what resource you can be to somebody. How much of a resource can you be? And that just increases, you know, so much what a resource that you can be. So yeah, so much of this. So would you suggest against Jody's view of putting show name character music? You know, I would, because you're going to talk to different people and get different opinions. I don't think it's the worst idea in the world. Let me put it this way. I've never done that. I have never done that. And if he's done that and that's worked for him, then try it. You can try it different ways. If you're really doing what I'm saying, then you're going to be sending many, 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 many emails every single week, and you're going to be following up every month. So you have lots of time to try different things, and you can cross compare. You can send some emails that say frozen grilled cheese, and you can send some emails that say the character's name, and I would actually love to hear that feedback from you when you come back next time we talk, and you can say, these are the ones that got open, these are the ones that didn't. Why don't we do that? Why don't we see what that is like? Now, how many of you, if you really think about this gets exciting. You draft one email. You draft one awesome email. Maybe it takes you like 18, 20 minutes. And by the way, if you want, I'm not going to do this for everybody, but if a few of you want to post your email, right, in the group after this call, let's say the first 3 of you who do it, I will actually look at it and tell you if I would change anything about it, right? And then you can see that as like a template. So now you have that. And once you have that, you can copy and paste that email and just change the first line that says like, hey, Doug, hey, Cathy, hey, whatever. You change that. Now you copy and paste it. That should take you 16 minutes to copy and paste that to over 100 people. There's no excuse. So now you can do that every single day. And by the end of the week, you can have hundreds of people whose email you sent it to, or you could send it to 50 or 12. And I know it feels a little cringe-worthy, like, oh, you're going to hit send. So what? It's an email. How is that really taking away from somebody's day? And if it's a fun, cute email, and you know the songs that you've attached are awesome, you're like, well, that's fun. You know, like I just like made a little like smile in somebody's day. Maybe I asked them a fun question. Maybe people start responding and telling me like, you know, their favorite summer movie. Maybe somebody, you know, responds and tells me the best place to get, you know, the best place to get fondue in their city. You know, I don't know, whatever question you ask, it could just be fun. And then somebody's like, oh, I like that person. They always ask me like a cute question and they like trust my opinion. You know, you could say like, you have really good taste in music, and I know people who are good at music or good at anything culturally, or at least that's my experience. So in your, you know, I'm gonna be in your city sometime, or maybe you already live there. You know, what's your favorite place to go for this, or what's your favorite book you've read, or what? Anything would just be fun. It's fun to respond to those kinds of questions, and then you don't have to respond to me. I know you're busy.
All right,
Don't
so
even worry about it.
Is target like a handful of individuals.
Someone was talking.
And
Hang on. It's so weird when people.
I think I got him.
Okay. No problem. How about emails to ad agencies? Any differences? How much does a resume matter? Oh, resume? 0. Don't worry about a resume. How about emails to ad agencies? I would say it's the same. You know, the difference would be the playlist I would send. I would send a different playlist. Sarah, you guys are getting it now. How old are your girls? My girls are 2 and 5 and 7. It's a long game. Success doesn't all rest on one email. Yeah. I will have to rewatch because I was under the impression that was the subject line because that's what I asked. Oh, well, it's totally fine. You can write whatever you want. Just see which one you... Jody said you should put it in the body of the email, not in the subject. Oh, I see. You guys are debating that. Look, it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, you should try it a few ways and see which one feels best to you. How many people would you say you contacted in total with only 20 of them? Oh my God. How many people have I contacted in total? I mean, I want to say it's got to be over 1,000 people. Just because it was years of doing this. And I would reach out to all different kinds of people, you know, from editors to, I mean, I would obviously start with supervisors, then broadcast producers, the business affairs folks, sometimes editors, just a whole bunch of people. And what's also cool is that in the ad world, it takes on a life of its own. There's just so many people you can connect to. So many of the producers, by the way, are freelance. So at ad agencies, a lot of the producers hop around because they'll work at one ad agency until they're finished with this one ad and the campaign lasts 10 months, then they don't need them anymore. So they'll go work on a different ad agency's, you know, thing. So a lot of times those producers have their own websites where it's like, you know, Jason Smith, producer, and you go to their website and you can reach out to Jason Smith, and next time that he needs music, you know, he can become your friend and your ally and your advocate. There's just an endless amount. What percentage of those emails replied? Half, a third? Definitely not half. A third? I don't know. That seems a little high. A lot of people don't respond, but you don't need a lot of people to respond. I would say, you know, out of 1,000, probably a couple hundred people have responded over the years. And of those people, sometimes it takes like, you know, a few times that you write to them before they ever respond. Sometimes they, like Maureen Crow, actually, she was like, years later, she's like, oh yeah, I'd always known about you. You know, you had reached out to me and I'd been reading your emails for years. And I'm like, oh, thanks for responding. I wasn't mad. I mean, like people are busy, but I guess I don't worry about that. I've never really worried about that. Someone just asked, did you keep up IVF the whole time while you were being active in your career? And would you say it didn't affect your IVF results being so busy? Yeah, I was definitely working the whole time. And probably being so busy wasn't great for it, but it was sort of like there was no other way to do it. Can you contact multiple people in the same agency and will it be okay to just slightly personalize the message? Yeah. I mean, do you really think that people go over to each other's desks? Did you get an email from Cathy? Helen? What'd she write you? Let me see it. She talked to you about grilled cheese? She talked to me about grilled cheese too. I'm going to delete this. I can't believe we both got the same email. Okay. I'm going to walk into Susan's office and see if she got this email. I'm going to ask her. Like, nobody's doing that. No one cares. Like, no one cares enough. Um, so yeah, I would be busy, 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 busy. At the end of the day, uh, it's all about taking action. And the number one thing that most people are not going to do is follow through. And they're not going to follow through because of all the reasons we talked about today. They think they're a burden. They think they're bothering someone. They think they're going to be looking for opportunities when real. And if this is what's really there at the end, let's say you were hiking with a friend and it's tough, like it's steep and it's going to it's going to make you break a sweat, and it's not an easy hike, and but at the top of that hill, instead of this like beautiful view, there's basically going to be that person that was not nice to you in middle school. Like, are you hiking the hill? No. Like, you're like, I'm going to do all of this to run into that person that's going to make me feel bad. Like, I'm going to leave, why am I doing it? And your friend's like, oh, because it's really good for your health. Oh, you're doing it because, I want you to do it. You're like, I'm not doing this. I'm going to leave. But if you believe that at the top of that hill, there's an amazing view and you can't wait to be up there, and it's such a great way to spend your time, and it's such a good payoff. And you're meeting up with your other friends who are hiking from the other side. You guys are gonna have a picnic. You're gonna follow through. What I'm saying is, if the thing that you're ultimately working toward makes you feel like shit, you're not gonna do it. If the thing that you're ultimately working toward, which is having the right music and then starting to send it out, and really it's just gonna make you feel bad, you feel like you're in the way, you don't really feel like it's gonna happen, why would you put in the effort? You would be stupid to do that. Like, you're a logical person, and your brain was created to keep you protected and to keep you from pain. So if you're telling yourself things that make you feel bad, that are sort of waiting for you at the end of a certain thing, and that's part of what, then if that was me, I would probably sabotage myself and never be ready, because I wouldn't want to do that piece. I would probably do everything I had to not quite complete what needed to be completed for me to then be at a place where I had to follow through with that part, because that part made me feel bad. And I would basically be sabotaging my success. Does that make sense? I think that a lot of times we don't know why we're doing that, but it's really simple. You don't want to feel pain. And at the end of the day, we all get what we really, really, really want most. And if what you really want most is to avoid pain, then you will. And you can be proud of yourself for getting it what you really want, because everyone gets what they really, really want. But if what you really, really want is this other thing, you're going to have to let your mind know that there's no pain there, that there's actually, that failure is a win, because it's going to show you what didn't work, and that you getting through to this person actually will be exhilarating, because that's going to help you grow, and that's really what you want. Or you might actually, by doing it 6 times, the 7th or 8th time, someone actually might follow through, and that you want to be able to put all this to the test and show up for somebody and be in their life and follow through, and you can do that. And so you're really excited about all of that. And that that's what's on the other side, is you getting to finally put all of this in motion, be a good person, have that sensitivity, and then deliver on all of these things that you've been working on. You'll be excited about it, and you will follow through. Because I see this all the time with people. I see this all the time where people, I have a friend who moved to New York City last year, and her idea was like she was going to try out for Broadway shows, and she's broke, and she's like, oh, I might move back. And I'm like, well, how many shows did you audition for? And she's like, I mean, I didn't. And I'm like, oh, so why would you move back having not even done it? She's like, well, I told you, like, I went to that one voice teacher. She said I wasn't ready, and that was really upsetting. And, it's really hard, and it's hard to get on the list, and I wouldn't even be able to get the audition anyway. And she had all of this stuff, and we had this long talk, and I said, let's say you did get the audition and you walked in the room. How do you feel singing in front of those people? And she's like, I feel like an idiot because I don't feel like I'm good enough and I feel like I'm wasting their time. I'm like, well, that's why you didn't audition. Why would you put yourself through that if you really believe that you're not good enough, you're wasting people's time? Of course, you're not going to fight to get the audition. There's no way, because your brain's going to tell you pain, avoid it at all costs. You're going to feel pain. So you're not going to do that. And I told her that I had just interviewed this woman, Jessica Vosk, who plays Elphaba. She played Elphaba the last couple of years on Broadway in Wicked. And Jessica used to work at a hedge fund on Wall Street. And when she was 27 years old, she was cleaning out her office. She was miserable every single day. And she was cleaning out her office, and this note fell out of a book, and it was from her grandmother. And it said to her, your voice is the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. You know, I hope that you'll follow through with all the magic inside of you. And her grandma had just died, and she felt like it was a sign. And so she quit her job and told her parents that she was quitting her very high paying job. And she wound up living on savings until it ended. And then she was a nanny in New York City. And her friends were like, you're a nanny now? Didn't you have like pantsuits and weren't you making like 6 figures at 26 years old? She's like, yeah, I was miserable. And it took her 8 years to get on Broadway. And then she did like one show and another and another and another. And then, you know, now she has a really big career. But she was telling me, in contrast to this friend I was talking to, I said, how many auditions were you going on? And she's like, oh, it was brutal. She's like, I was going on like, you know, I don't know, 40 auditions a month, and I wouldn't get anything, but I would get close, you know, and I would just keep going and going and going and going and going and going and going. And she's like, and I realized it was like, I had to be an Olympian. Like she's like, I realized that in order for me to actually make it there, I had to put in the work on my voice, and I had to really put in the work even on auditioning. And she said, I had to learn to love it. I had to learn to love auditioning because that's most of what my job was going to be. And so she said, I learned to love it. And that would be something I would say to you is, we have to learn to love this job. And this job is not, it's definitely not what it isn't going to be is the majority of the time, it's not going to be signing the license paperwork and watching your song on TV. But it's going to be writing the songs, reaching out to people, collaborating, thinking about how you can add value to a co-write, to a producer, researching things, coming up with new ideas. And if we can come to love that, then we're going to do great at this. If we hate it, then we can make a decision and say, you know what, I hate all of these things, and I'm so hard on myself, and I don't want to feel pain, and I don't want to put myself in a position to be miserable. And I would be so much less miserable working for somebody else. And I'm not going to do that anymore. But then maybe you ask yourself the opposite question. You're like, you know what? As hard as this is and scary, when things are exciting and scary, that's probably a good thing when they're equal parts exciting and scary. And chances are, even though I feel so frustrated because all these things make me uncomfortable, if I gave it up and I decided that's it, done, end of chapter, closed book, I'm going to go work for somebody else, and I'm going to work at a school or go get my MSW and be a psychologist and just try to create a whole new meaningful identity. I know I'm kidding myself, I won't be happy. Then there's nothing worse than that, you know, because at least you feel like I'm waking up being aligned with myself. And the truth is, in order for you to be successful, really successful in any business, you're gonna have to, this is gonna come up. Like if you want to be more than just like sort of like clocking in day after day, if you want to be really successful at something and move up in a company, an organization, or be your own boss in anything, you're going to have to go through all of this anyway. You're going to have to go through the part where you realize that you are giving more than taking. You're going to have to be solving people's problems, showing up, and being willing to receive value for what you do. So you may as well do that in the setting that you most want to do it. Not to mention, it all helps you become a better person because you're playing against yourself, right? And you're trying to get out of your comfort zone. So I think that between now and the time that we meet again, I think that you should set a sort of a non-negotiable with yourself and be like, I'm going to send this many emails, period. End of story. Like, end of story. And I'm going to be able to say which kinds of emails were open more, this one or this one. And I would love to see what you guys are sending. So I'd love to see a few of you post in the group and show us what you sent and what kinds of songs you sent as well. I gave myself 300 doors to open before I give up. That's good. Awesome. Very, very cool. So the last thing I wanted to tell you, which was, and I'll let you go after this, which was a huge breakthrough for me. How many of you have read Gay Hendricks' book? It's called The Big Leap. Has anyone read this book? Oh my God, it's such a good book. Yeah, somebody's like, yes. Yeah, it's an amazing book. So I just wanted to just throw this out there to you because I was just, we were just talking about this on the podcast and it's kind of life-changing. So essentially, everybody has an upper limit. And the upper limit is that essentially there's a certain amount of joy that you will let yourself, yeah, that's it. There's a certain amount of joy that you're going to let yourself feel. And the reason being is that once you go beyond that, and it could happen because you had like a really, like maybe this call actually starts to inspire you and excite you, or maybe something really big happens and you walk out of the studio and you're so excited about the song, or maybe you buy a really cool pair of jeans and you love the way you look and you're excited about walking and you know, you're going to go on this vacation in them, or maybe you, whatever, there's a certain amount of joy, which once you pass, you start to feel like, am I allowed to be this happy? Is something bad going to happen if I'm this happy? So what we do is we bring it back down to our default. We go back to our upper limit. And we do that by either popping the bubble and we tell ourselves, don't get so happy, nothing's going to happen. Or we tell ourselves, you know, if you start getting this really excited, you know, something bad will happen. So just tone it down. Just there's the foreboding that comes up. Or you tell yourself, who are you to be this happy? Like there's people starving, your sister's whatever, like just stop it already. And what you'll do is you'll look for something in your life that's shit to get you back. So you'll either do one of those things like, it's probably not possible, stop it, da, 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 da. Or you'll be like, yeah, my career is really amazing right now, but my marriage isn't great. And here's why. And maybe your marriage is fine that week, but you'll find a way of looking at it where you're like, is it really good? You'll ask some existential question like, but maybe it's not really good. And I'm kidding myself. So this is a huge problem for all of us. And Brene Brown talks about this because she's been researching vulnerability and shame. And it's really, really important as we work on our careers, as we work on hitting goals, because if you don't let yourself do this big leap where you're going to allow yourself to go beyond what you've decided is your upper limit, it's going to be really, really difficult to change the results of your life because you are going to somehow sabotage that because it's not going to feel comfortable. And so we have to ask ourselves, why does this happen? So Brene Brown has said that the greatest vulnerability a person feels is actually not pain, it's joy. Because as soon as people feel joy, she said, you know, you walk into your kids, you know, go tuck them in at night, you see them sleeping and you're like, oh my God, I love them. And like a second later, you have a thought about something bad happening to them. And that's because you felt so vulnerable. You got filled up with joy. You got so excited. And then the fear comes in. So that might happen with your career because you find yourself in a moment getting carried away and you get so excited. And then this thought comes in, don't be stupid. You remember what happened when you were 8 years old and you got totally disappointed. You're going to get disappointed. It's not going to work out. Calm down. Just calm down. And so then you bring it back down again. And then you live from that place. And again, in that place, it's hard to take massive action. so this is what I want you to understand. In order to be very, very successful, you're going to have to be vulnerable, and you're going to have to be open to lots of joy. And joy being available means that you are going to be open to tremendous disappointment and tremendous pain, and they go together. There's no way around it. It doesn't work any other way, which is why people are like, it's so painful to pitch music or to audition or to get up on stage and be terrible and bomb. I would rather just not do it, because I can't handle when that joy comes up and then I feel pain. It's just too much to bear. So what I'll do is I will actually I'll make a shortcut and feel pain constantly. And I will feel pain constantly and feel sad, because then I won't actually have to be surprised by it. It's the weirdest thing, but this is what people do. We went to go see this past week, we went to Largo and we saw Jeff Garlin, who's on Curb Your Enthusiasm. He was practicing his Netflix special, which he's about to record. And he was talking about, like, he told 3 or 4 stories where he was like literally like dying on stage, like terrible. He's like, I was so bad. He's like, let's face it. What was I at the time? 30. He's like, I'd been doing stand-up for like 10 years. I was so bad at it. I would get booed off the stage. There were so many times. He told us about a time where he was performing stand-up at a place called the Up All Night Disco, and his set was scheduled for 3 a.m. on Sunday. He's like, if it's a 3 a.m. spot on a Saturday night, maybe people there like and having a good time. If it's 3 a.m. on a Sunday, he goes, you're just performing to like addicts, because like who's out at 3 a.m. on a Sunday, like wasted, like nobody who's like doing good things with their life. And that's the spot that they gave me. He's like, I was just unrelenting and I was terrible. He's like, I had horrible things happen. I was performing. I remember taking the midnight bus home from a casino in Lake Tahoe, and I had just completely bombed on stage, and a magician came on after me, and the crowd loved him so much more than me. And he was so stupid. And he's like, and this is what I was up against, but I was bad. I wasn't even good yet. And he's like, and now I have not one show, I have 2 shows. I'm on the Goldbergs, I'm on Curb Your Enthusiasm. He goes, I make millions and millions and millions of dollars a week just to do what I do. He goes, I sit around in my underwear. I get paid to be a character who sits in a Barker lounger in my underwear. And he's like, it's amazing. And he said, if someone would have told me that my career would not take off till I was 47 years old after starting when I was like 21, he's like, I would have said, okay, well, I'm in it till it happens. He's like, it would have been really cool if someone would have said, like, by the way, you're going to like sweat it out and be awful, but by the time you're 47, you're going to start making millions of dollars just to like walk around and be you. He's like, that would have been nice to know, but I was willing to do it anyway, And it just happens to be a story that I happened to hear this week. But I think that, again, the pain is something that we want to avoid. And at the same time, like, that's not happening, by the way, ever. Like, you're never avoiding it. Like, pain is inevitable. It's inevitable. It's happening no matter what. It's part of being alive. It's part of being on the planet. So is suffering avoidable? Well, suffering's avoidable. Pain, inevitable. Suffering is the optional part. We don't have to suffer. There's a lot of ways that we can sit with pain, feel pain, work through pain, and feel like shit, but we don't have to suffer. And that's where all of the self-development stuff comes into play. But part of it is this whole thing. Part of it is, are we willing to increase our capacity to feel joy? And that is a big question to ask yourself. And then just to start to notice, just be aware. Like, do you find yourself doing that? Like, do you notice when you start to feel that limit expand and you start getting excited? And then do you notice what you start to do to bring yourself back? And see if you can just be aware of what triggers it, and if you can stay there a little longer, because that's going to actually help you push through. I just want to read. Carolyn Miss talks about it as well in Anatomy of the Spirit, that the reason it takes people so long to forgive other people, for example, is not because it's hard to forgive others, it's because the act of forgiveness will change one's life so much that we are more scared of that change, and it will bring then anything else. So we carry around that anger and pain. It's a form of self-sabotage. Yeah, at the end of the day, what we're talking about is just self-sabotage. And it's very, very, very true. I just wanted to read. I took a screenshot. Hang on. Let's see if I can find it. Let me see if I can find it. I don't know if I can, but maybe if I go to his Instagram. I don't know if I can find it, but my friend Jeff Goins, he has a book called Real Artists Don't Starve. And I wish I could find what he posted recently. Let me see if I can find it in here. It's probably not in here anymore because it was in his Insta story. No, I don't think it's in here anymore. No. Anyway, he was talking about basically what are the signs of people being starving artists. And, one of the things he was talking about is how a lot of times if someone's a starving artist, they tell you all the reasons why things aren't working rather than taking responsibility because it's too painful. So they just tell you why their circumstances are the way they are. But he said it in a really helpful way. Anyway, all right. Well, I am going to. So the supervisors you're reaching out to are for ads, commercials, all different kinds of placements. No, I reach out to everybody. I reach out to everybody that I can. So how many of you are willing to commit to sending 20 emails before we meet next time? How many people are going to do that? Sweet. How many of you think you're going to top that and send 10 emails a week if we meet, because we're supposed to meet the first Sunday of the month? How many of you are going to then send 40 emails? Well, that would be amazing if you can send 40 emails between now and then. And I would love to actually hear what happens. I would love for those of you who do it to say, this is who wrote back. This is what happened. And by the way, you're so lucky that you have email, because there was a time where email wasn't even an option. People had to get a meeting or phone call somebody. And that's the next rung, is making the phone calls. And I would say I wouldn't call music supervisors, but I would call ad agencies. I wouldn't cold call supervisors at TV shows and films, but I would cold call ad agencies, because why not? They're huge organizations. They're much easier to cold call. You can find their numbers. You can find the business affairs people really easily. They could then introduce you, which makes you actually have like a more professional intro to the creative team. I would definitely think about doing that, but I know that that's scary, and there's a muscle that has to be built for that. And remember that when you go ahead and send emails, you don't only have to keep it to people in the States. Think about Australia, think about New Zealand, think about the Czech Republic, think about Russia, think about Paris, think about Vancouver. There's ad agencies everywhere. There's no excuse. There's so many people that you can be reaching out to. So just remember that when you wake up tomorrow morning, it's Monday morning, there are people whose problems you can be solving. There are people looking for this music, and think about it like, I have someone's wallet. I would love to get it to them. And then think about everything that we said today. And I think what would be helpful, because we forget things sometimes, if there was something that I talked about today or something that you thought as a result of what we were talking about that like helped you think of this differently, like, oh, it's an obligation to help people. It's about thinking about them, not myself. It's about whatever it is. I'm not a burden. I'm helping. I want to be the one person in their life who actually does the job well. Whatever it is that helped you, I would write it in the group. I would repeat it in the group, because you guys did that after our last call, and it helped. You helped each other, and you help yourself by just repeating that to yourself. So again, you guys are troopers. We were here for a little over 2 hours, and you can tell, I mean, I'm sick today, and I didn't even notice the time because I've lived this my whole life. I continue to live this every single day. And so it's fun to talk about. It's a pleasure, but it's about getting clear and not sabotaging yourself. That's really what it is. We can talk all day long about the music, and that's why we're bringing on more and more experts. John Kleinbell is gonna come back on a regular basis. By the way, he loved hanging out with you, and we just have tons of people coming in to give feedback. So that's great. But at the end of the day, if you are working on that, and then there's this entire, it's like a mountain that's like sitting on your chest because you're doing all this, but like, how do you actually deliver it? that's the part that we have to change. So great. I'm so glad that you enjoyed it. I enjoyed it too. What would make it really worth it for me is if you would follow through and just show up for yourself, because you deserve it. You deserve to do that. So yes, I will go gargle the salt water, but you guys made me feel better. I felt like crap and now I feel better. So, all right. Well, lots of love, everybody. I want to hear that you emailed those 40 people. I'd love to see 3 people post, but I'd love to see all of you posting the emails. I want to read them. I want to read what you're writing, because I'm so curious. And I would love to hear what your takeaways are. I'd love you guys to post those in the group so that you can remind yourself what really is going to help it stick, and so you can follow through. Just remember what I said, like, don't allow feeling fear to stand in between you and what you really want. And don't let somebody else who's got half the heart as you, who's not as kind, who doesn't have a pipeline to other people, be the one that has the confidence to move through. And you know that you could help this person because you know you're a nice person, and you know you could be an advocate and an ally for them and ambassador for them, and you know you have a pipeline. So allow that to keep you in it. All right. Happy Sunday. Happy June. I'll talk to you guys later.